Number 10. Spider-Man sells his soul. Spider-Man's One More Day storyline from 2007 was not well received, mostly due to the decision to end Peter Parker and Mary Jane's marriage. In this storyline, Aunt May is fatally shot, and if that wasn't bad enough, in the aftermath of the Civil War, Spidey's secret identity has been exposed. Peter winds up making a deal with the devil himself, the demon lord Mephisto. And the price of reviving Aunt May? Peter agrees to have his history with Mary Jane erased, making it so that they've never even been married in the first place. As a part of this deal, Mephisto also erases the world's collective memory of Spider-Man's secret identity. Editor-in-Chief Joe Quesada has said that the decision-making behind this storyline was based around returning Spider-Man to his roots and preserving the longevity of the character. I guess the writers just didn't want Spidey getting too mature on us being married and everything. Whether you agree with the decision or not, Spidey selling his soul to the devil and throwing away his love is definitely a scary moment. Hey Nerd Squad, if you like these lists and you want to see some more, be sure to hit that like button. Number 9. Daredevil kills Bullseye. In the 2010 series titled Shadowland, we follow Daredevil and some other street-level superheroes as Daredevil returns to Hell's Kitchen and becomes leader of the Hand Ninja Clan. Daredevil builds a temple/prison in Hell's Kitchen, and his methods start to become a lot more extreme. After Bullseye slays Elektra, Daredevil is pushed to the edge and gives chase, catching up with Bullseye, and the two wind up dangling from a power cable. Despite the opportunity to easily pull his adversary up to safety, Daredevil instead chooses to drop Bullseye to his death in a surprisingly dark moment. This leads to a conflict involving Spider-Man, Luke Cage, and more. This story also introduces a new Power Man to the Marvel Universe. It's later revealed that Daredevil is actually possessed by the Beast of the Hand, explaining his erratic and extreme behavior. Bullseye is later revealed to still be alive, but seeing evil Daredevil heartlessly kill him was definitely a scary Marvel moment. Number 8. Peter Parker dug up Gwen Stacy's corpse. In Spider-Man's Sins Past storyline, a mysterious mistake from Gwen Stacy's past comes back to haunt our favorite wall crawler, in a story that is all at once scary, bizarre, and emotional. It begins with a strange letter from Gwen that was written long ago. Pete only has the first page, so at first it really doesn't make much sense. However, after being attacked by two masked figures at Gwen Stacy's grave in the cemetery, things start to become more clear. The rest of the letter reveals that Gwen Stacy had a secret affair with Norman Osborn before she died. It's an awful reveal and an emotional story for Spidey, and it's punctuated by this scene where we see Peter Parker preparing to dig up Gwen's corpse to get some DNA. Fans were really not impressed or very happy to see Gwen's past tarnished like this, and honestly, the whole story just kind of takes away from the impact of Gwen Stacy's death.
Number 7. Kindred reveal. With issue 850 or 49 of The Amazing Spider-Man delayed, many are expecting because it has that legacy number, it might be a huge issue. We already know that Norman Osborn will be returning to his more classic role as Green Goblin after spending some time thinking he was Cletus Cassidy due to him merging with Carnage and becoming the Red Goblin previously. That's right, finally Norman will be going from red back to green again. But we are also hoping, as Kindred appears on the cover, that we will also be seeing more of the mysterious new villain, who we still don't know who he is. Sorry, I got too excited and then I lost my place. But we are also hoping, as Kindred appears on the cover, that we will also be seeing more of this new mysterious villain. Who is Kindred? And perhaps even find out just whose face is hiding under that hood and mask.
Number 6. Wolverine killed his dad. Even in his youth, Logan was a killer. In the limited series called The Origin, we learn more of Wolverine's history. He grew up as the son of the wealthy John and Elizabeth Howlett, and he spent most of his time in bed with an unknown illness. Some form of asthma or something like that. Mutant stuff, you know. His mother was secretly having an affair with their groundskeeper Thomas Logan. After he is expelled from the manor for his misdeeds, he later returns to attempt to rob the place, and he begs Elizabeth to run away with him. However, the husband shows up and Thomas blasts him with a shotgun. Young Logan actually witnesses all of this, and it sends him into his first ever berserker rage, his bone claws popping out as he lunges forward and stabs Thomas to death. It's heavily implied that the groundskeeper could be Logan's biological father, so his rage-induced revenge kill is actually him killing his own father. It's implied anyways.
Number 5. The Odin Sword. This is a bit of a broad term considering that there are actually 3 swords that go by this name, so let's spend a little bit of time on each, shall we? The first is the Oversword of Asgard, a giant sword that if ever unsheathed means the end of the world was at hand. Over the years, several enemies of Asgard attempted to draw the Odin Sword to destroy Asgard, including Mangog, and Odin actually used the sword as a weapon for the destroyer armor after it absorbed the souls of all of Asgard. Despite its immense power though, it was actually ineffective against all of the Celestials, which was proven when Thor threw it against Arishem the Judge's chest, and it did absolutely nothing. The second Odin Sword was Ragnarok, aka the end of all things, the sword given to Thor during the Serpent's War, which Odin stated to be the only weapon capable of defeating Kull. The third and final one isn't actually an officially confirmed Odin Sword, but it is assumed to be one. It appeared in the World Eater storyline where Thor used the giant sword to cut through space and time of the World Tree. Check out these crazy powerful swords for yourself, starting with the first appearance of them in 1965's Journey into the Mystery.
Number 4. Spidey becomes a zombie, eats Mary Jane and Aunt May. This one comes from Marvel Zombies and is a really uncomfortable moment. Spider-Man is swinging around the city when he spots Ash Williams holding a chainsaw and shotgun. Ash tells Spidey about the journey that he's been on from the gates of heaven where a zombified sentry punched him down into this world. The two of them then witness that sentry biting and infecting other superheroes like Luke Cage and Hawkeye. Ash later explains that the source of the problem is the Necronomicon, and they make some plans to search for it. But unfortunately, Spider-Man is then bitten and later punched by Ash, dislocating his jaw. Spidey, now bitten by a zombie with the dislocated jaw, sees this destruction taking place in the city and heads off to find Mary Jane and Aunt May to ensure their safety. At this point, he finishes transforming into a zombie, and when he arrives, eats Aunt May and MJ in a horrifying scene.
Number 3. Spider-Man dies. As we discussed previously, it's likely that Tom Holland's third Spider-Man film could be his last. So that begs the question, how will Spider-Man exit the MCU? Spider-Man is one of Marvel's biggest properties, but the character could live on in alternate versions, which could be brought into the fold later. Probably through Sony though, as they seem pretty intent on building their own Spider-Verse, one that they hope will rival Disney's massive Marvelverse that they created with the Avengers franchise. If Disney really wanted to give Holland's Spidey a finite goodbye, it's possible we could see the character not just retire, but die in that final film, exiting the Marvel and Disney universe forever, with a new alternate Spider-Man such as Miles Morales, Ghost Spider, or Jessica Drew stepping in to take over the future films. Or who knows, Jackpot in some weird capacity, since there's been rumors about that.
Number 2. Giant Man and the Blob in Ultimatum. The Marvel Ultimate series is full of grotesque over-the-top moments, and it's awesome. Seriously, it was kind of hard to choose just one. It's always fun reading alternate universes where your favorite characters can die, stuff gets blown up, and it just stays that way. However, in Ultimatum, the book made to sort of tidy up everything that had happened so far, things get really crazy. In one scene, we see the Wasp reduced to nothing more than a late-night snack for the Blob, munching away on her like a hungry wolf. She was already dead and only being eaten by him, but still, it was pretty messed up. As an added bonus, the Blob is quickly eaten himself by Giant Man, who bursts into a rage, grabs him, and just bites the Blob's head clean off. The whole thing is nasty and unceremonious, but these kind of deaths are exactly what the Ultimate series is all about. And here we are at number 1. The Punisher guts the leader of a trafficking ring. The number of scary things the Punisher has done could easily be on its own list, but this act definitely belongs here. In the Punisher Max series, things really get cranked up to the next level. This series had some of the most gory images ever posted in comics. Headshots with brain splatter, entrails hanging out, you name it. But the worst has gotta be this guy, who Frank Castle decided to really take his time with. Christou Boulat, the leader of a sex trafficking group called the Slavers, meets a seriously dark end at the hands of the Punisher. After hunting and killing all the other members, he keeps Christou alive to extract information from him. His method? He disembowels the guy and wraps his intestines around a tree in one of the goriest comic scenes I've ever seen.
Number 10. The Black Vortex. Created by the Celestial known as Godhead, the Black Vortex is a somewhat sentient mirror-like object that shows an individual what they would look like with their cosmic potential unleashed. And then, after they say, "I submit to the Black Vortex," the individual is given that power. It's also capable of taking that power away, but that doesn't happen too often. Historically, Gaara was the first Vescardi to submit to the power of the Vortex, and 1 year later, after a terrible war, they were left with the only surviving member of their race. Fast forward 12 billion years, then we see the Vortex in Mr. Knife's possession. However, it's been tossed around so many times since its creation that it is tough to pinpoint exactly where it is half the time. Like, seriously, it's gone from Mr. Knife to the Guardians of the Galaxy to Ronin, back to the Guardians of the Galaxy to the X-Men to Captain Marvel. It's just nuts. Other known characters who have used the power of the Black Vortex are the Slaughter Lords, Gamora, Groot, Kitty Pryde, and Ronan the Accuser. However, Groot had his powers taken away from him, which left him with a slightly altered appearance from then on. Why not check out this cosmic power unleasher for yourself in its first appearance in 2015's Legendary Star-Lord number 5. Number 9. Darkhold. Years and years and years ago, the Elder God known as Chthon decided to write down all of his evil works and spells so he could pass on his terrifying knowledge. Originally written on flesh, it was later transferred to stone and then to some indestructible parchment, and once it was bound together, it became known as the Darkhold or Chthon Scrolls or the Necronomicon. The book contains a vast array of powerful black magic spells, however very few can actually use them without losing their souls and becoming possessed by Chthon. These spells include, but are not limited to, accessing limbo, controlling the will of others, summoning Chthon himself, and the most famous spell, the Montesi Formula, that is meant to basically just destroy all vampires. Humans first found the Darkhold 100,000 years ago during the pre-cataclysmic era, and it has survived until the modern day, having been held by prominent characters such as the Darkholders, Zula, Mephisto, Morgan Le Fay, Baron Zemo, and Elsa Bloodstone. In the 21st century, we saw the Darkholders take interest in Carnage because the prophecy stated that when the Red Slayer spills blood on sacred stone, he who sleeps shall wake, and what walked will walk once more. However, this just resulted in a major buff for Carnage because he was only empowered by Chthon's presence. Take a look at the Darkhold for yourself, starting with its first appearance in 1972's Marvel Spotlight number 4. Number 8. The Muramasa Blade. Muramasa was an immortal and legendary swordsman and smith from Japan and was the creator of two of the blades that played a large role in Wolverine's life, the Black Blade and the Muramasa Blade, which is the one that Logan wielded after he recovered his memories. This blade was crafted using a piece of Wolverine's soul and is capable of cutting through pretty much anything that stands in its way. I mean, heck, it sliced through one of Cyclops' optic beams. It also has the ability to greatly reduce the efficiency of any healing factor, which Wolverine learned firsthand after he saved a minor wound from it during a fight with Captain America that took days to heal. And he used this ability to his advantage when he went up against Sabretooth's clone and cut off his arm just before he decapitated him. The forging process of this took many years, but when Muramasa finally finished it and handed it over to Logan, he told Wolverine to wield it like an angry god, and that is exactly what he did because he used it against many enemies while in possession of it, like Nuke, Wild Child, and Sabretooth. After Wolverine's temporary death, the sword was hunted down by the Orphans of X and reforged into several bullets for them to use. Take a look at this legendary sword for yourself by checking out its first appearance in 2006's Wolverine Volume 3, number 40.
Number 7. Wolverine kills his son. In the Uncanny X-Force, we see one of Wolverine's darkest moments. When his son Daken returns from the dead, he plans to destroy the X-Force by creating a new brotherhood of mutants. Daken was raised by Romulus and abandoned by Wolverine, so he grew up with all the physical aspects of Wolverine, but without the moral code. Daken doesn't like that his father has helped to create the new school for young mutants, and Daken has vowed to kill every student that they take in. This is pretty much the limit for Wolverine. It's the last straw, and frustrated and ashamed of his reckless son, he finishes him off by drowning him in some shallow water, one of the few ways to kill someone with a powerful healing factor. As he kills Daken, Wolverine romantically imagines a different future for his son in a scene that is all at once tragic, scary, and just kind of weird.
Number 6. The Mandarin's 10 Rings. Remaker, Influence, Spin, Spectrum, Nightbringer, Daemonic, Incandescence, Lightning, Zero, and the Liar, aka the 10 rings created by the McLuhan technology that found their way to Earth via the McLuhan explorer Axon Carr. The Mandarin discovered the alien in his ship and became obsessed with the rings, so much so that he killed Carr and just took them for himself. Each ring contains the soul of a long-dead legendary cosmic warrior trapped in a phantasmal state, and they grant the wielder some pretty crazy powers. The Remaker allows the Mandarin to manipulate the atomic and molecular structures of matter. The Influence allows the Mandarin to generate and project various beams of concussive force. The Spin causes the air to move about at a high speed in a vortex. The Spectral allows the Mandarin to project a beam of energy capable of destroying the bonds between the atoms and molecules. The Nightbringer allows him to create an area of darkness using dark energy. The Daemonic allows him to generate and manipulate various forms of electromagnetic energy. The Incandescence ring allows the Mandarin to project blasts of infrared to produce flame or ignite combustible materials. The Lightning Lightning Ring allows the Mandarin to project blasts of electrical energy, Zero allows him to project waves of intense cold and ice, and the Lyre magnifies the Mandarin's psionic energies, allowing him to mentally manipulate the thoughts and actions of others. Upon putting all the rings on at once, the Mandarin was flooded with thoughts of reviving the Cosmic Warriors, and many years later he actually attempted to do so. However, he never actually succeeded, and then, after his death, the rings were placed under S.H.I.E.L.D's watchful eye. Check out these rings for yourself in 1964's Tales of Suspense number 50.
Number 5. Sinister 6. A few months back, Sony announced an untitled Sony Marvel project that fans could be expecting to see released on October 8th of 2021. Of course, due to the global crisis still being in effect, it is likely this project will get delayed and pushed back. However, many still pondered at exactly what the project could be. The interesting thing is that it would be releasing about a year after their original release date for Venom 2, and that time would also have been only a few months after the original release date for Spider-Man 3, set to release originally in July 2021. We know the film was also said to be something that would expand Sony's Spider-Verse, which has led many to hope, especially with Morbius slated to be released in the nearish future, that this film we could be seeing as early as next year could be the long-awaited Sinister 6 film. Squee!
Number 4. NECROSWORDS. The NECROSWORDS are bladed weapons, obviously, that are formed out of the living abyss, though they usually manifest as a separate object as opposed to covering a portion of the wielder's body like most of the symbiotes do. It's not super clear if all symbiotes can take on the form of a NECROSWORD or if there are specific guidelines they have to meet. There are a few versions of these terrifying blades out there. The strongest and scariest in my opinion is the all-black NECROSWORD, a massive double-headed sword capable of cleaving through the stars that was created by Null from the first symbiote All Black. This NECROSWORD was also wielded by Gore the God Butcher after he witnessed a fight between Null and another god, and he used it to travel the universe killing any and every god he could find. Other non-godly beings have been able to manifest NECROSWORDs, as Malekith, Conan the Barbarian, and Eddie Brock have all created their own as well. The NECROSWORD has even made its way into the MCU, as Hela in Thor Ragnarok was able to conjure many NECROSWORDs in her battle with Thor. While you're reading the comics from now on, why not keep an eye out for some other NECROSWORD appearances?
Number 3. Wolverine ripped in half by the Hulk. In Ultimate Wolverine vs. Hulk Part 1, we see Wolverine missing the bottom half of his body. Nick Fury has tasked Logan with hunting down and killing the Hulk. Using a stool sample taken from the Hulk, he tracks the Green Giant down and battles him in the Himalayas. The Hulk winds up literally ripping Logan in two and tossing his legs up the mountain about 4 miles away. Wolverine, with his infamous healing factor, has a flashback explaining all of this while he climbs up the mountain using just his claws. When he finally reaches the peak, he finds the Hulk chilling up there with a harem of women just waiting and ready for round 2. The whole thing is super epic with no shortage of action-packed moments, but seeing Wolverine get torn in two like a piece of paper really leaves an impression.
Number 2. The Infinity Gauntlet. The Infinity Gauntlet. Now I have very mixed feelings about this one because on one hand, it is literally the most powerful object in the Marvel Universe, which is super sick, but it makes me sad because it just makes me think of Avengers, Infinity War, and Endgame. Now I imagine we're all familiar with this weapon because its prevalence in recent years, but if you're not, don't worry, I'll give you the rundown. By itself, the Infinity Gauntlet isn't much to talk about, but once combined with the time, space, soul, reality, power, and mind gems, aka the Infinity Stones, it becomes an all-powerful force that few can put a stop to. It can do pretty much anything the user requests of it, which is terrifying if you think about it. Thanos first used the power of the Infinity Gauntlet in hopes of appeasing his love, death, and with the infamous snap, he used it to get rid of half of the population of the entire universe. Adam Warlock was the next wielder of the gauntlet, using it against Magus. However, Warlock was smart enough to replace one of the gems with a fake, which created a massive gap in Magus' powers when he came into possession of the gauntlet. Other known users of the Infinity Gauntlet are Mr. Fantastic, Nebula, Captain America, and of course, Robert Downey Jr., Iron Man. I would also just like to point out that in Peter Porker's universe, Earth 8311, Thanos uses a variant of the gauntlet called the Infinity Gauntlet. Check out this all-powerful weapon for yourself, starting with its first appearance in 1990's Silver Surfer Volume 3, number 44. Number 1. Staff of One. A magical staff so powerful that it is stated to have had the likes of Dormammu tremble, and that's saying something because have you seen him? The staff was formed after Tokiko Minoru bested the magical entity known as the One with a thrall army twice the size of the One's. After her victory, she presented the One with a choice: to die or to become her sword. He chose the latter and became the Staff of One. The staff was passed through generations, and Tina Minoru receives the staff of one from Judy Minoru, who gave a speech about the rules and conditions and basically just a TLDR of using the staff like it had been done across the centuries. The current user of the staff is Nico Minoru, who is actually very proficient with it, and with his power she has gone up against the likes of the Upward Path, Arcade, the Witchbreaker, and more, and has come out on top each time. Now I won't bore you by telling every incantation that the Staff of One is capable of because we would literally be here 4 hours, so I'll just go over a few. Forget was used to erase Jeffrey Wilder's memories. Guess what? My spells do work against you was used so that her spells would actually work against the Gibborim. And Hulk Smash was used to send She-Hulk into a Berserker type rage. Now what makes this weapon so powerful and scary is that it seems it can be used for literally anything and everything. So see if you agree with me by checking out his first appearance in 2003's Runaways number 4.
Number 10. Breaking the Fourth Wall. With Sam Raimi's Spider-Man popping up in graffiti art in the trailer for Morbius, many fans have wondered if we'll ever get to return to that world that died with the third movie. Talk of Spider-Man 3 has also inspired fans to reflect on the film, and one Redditor even came up with a theory that actually makes the film more watchable, with all of its strange showboating moments. Film Nerd 14 suggested that both Venom and Spidey in the movie know that they are in a movie, and as such they are working to break that fourth wall, reaching right out to the audience and attempting to be more entertaining because they know it's a movie. Any theory for me that attempts to dive back into Spider-Man 3 is a scary one, especially when it implies if we ever see a melding of these worlds, we could end up with a weird, self-aware, fourth wall breaking Tobey Maguire Spider-Man again in the future. I'm cool with Tobey Maguire being Spider-Man, but I don't know about the fourth wall breaking. I feel like that might be too much for me. No more finger guns, please. Number 9. Polly Spider? Peter Parker has always been oddly lucky when it comes to the number and qualities of ladies he's had hanging off of his arm over the years. Of course, his relationships do have a tendency to end in heartbreak, so he's not as lucky there. But that's what happens when you have to keep major secrets from your partner. Like, you know, that you're a masked vigilante spider power possessing superhero. Still, he's managed to have relationships with two of the hottest ladies in comics, Mary Jane Watson and Felicia Hardy, aka the Black Cat. Now with issue 5 of Marvel's Spider-Man: The Black Cat Strikes, it's even been implied that there's the potential of a poly relationship blossoming between the three, as both Felicia and MJ express some serious liking of one another. Serious liking. The scary thing here is that there is still a lot of jealousy between the two ladies, so a polyamorous relationship happening between Peter, MJ, and Felicia could lead to more heartbreak than ever before. Still a lot of jealousy there. Although there is some respect, so maybe it'll work out in the future. Number 8. Spider-Man: The Dark Webslinger returns. Recently, artist Hayden Sherman took to Twitter to share some artwork that allows fans to imagine a Spider-Man story told in the vein of Frank Miller's Batman: The Dark Knight Returns. Sherman blends the fight between Spider-Man and the Green Goblin at the end of Sam Raimi's first Spider-Man film with the dark and gritty tones of the Dark Knight Returns story. And the few panels we see are stunning and moving. This might be a darker take than we normally see on Spider-Man, but I for one would be super down for a Spider-Man story like this to pop up in my comic shop. I would buy it. I personally would buy it. Sherman himself offered to draw an entire trilogy plus the 4th unmade film should Marvel want to hire him. And to that I say, Marvel, what are you waiting for? As he reminded everyone, the 20th anniversary is coming up for those films.
Number 7. Tactagon. Classified as an Omega level weapon, the Tactagon is a gauntlet-like weapon that bonds to its host. Disconnected from its original host in a battle many years ago, the Tactagon fell to Earth, landing in San Francisco, and found Violet Lightner, who it attached itself to and granted her immense power. Able to transform into the perfect weapon needed to defeat an opponent, and able to immediately figure out an opponent's weakness, the Tactagon helped her become the hero known as Armory, and this gave her the power needed to defeat Ultimo. Violet was stripped of the Tactagon not too long after because she couldn't control the power and accidentally killed MVP during training. And the next host actually ended up becoming a clone of MVP known as KIA. This also didn't last long because KIA couldn't really control the power either, and the more he fought against it, the more it held on to him. Thankfully, the Tactagon was eventually removed from his body and Tony Stark took it away to a secret location so that it could cause no more damage. Making its first appearance in 2007's Avengers: The Initiative number 1, check out this alien weapon for yourself and let me know your thoughts on it.
Number 6. Who is Kindred? Speaking of the great horrific Kindred reveal, the question still remains, who is Kindred. Many people seem to be jumping on board with the idea that it's likely either some form of Harry Osborn or some form of Gwen Stacy, just based on what we've discovered and what Kindred says in the latest issues of The Amazing Spider-Man. The constant reference to Kindred's vengeance being a family affair that is discussed with Norman at Ravencroft implies Harry. Kindred says that when Norman regains his sense of self, they'll once again be one big happy family. But at the end of issue 43, we learn the next comic is to be called The Sins of ... which is likely a reference to the Spider-Man stories Sins of the Father. Sins of the Father was the story that revealed that Norman Osborn and Gwen Stacy had children together. Ew, but also important, because it could be a hint.
Number 5. Spidey gave Mary Jane cancer. Much like The Dark Knight Returns, this story showed us a much older Peter Parker returning to form and his life of crime fighting as Spider-Man. It's actually J. Jonah Jameson who winds up helping get Spidey out of his slump, giving him a mask and inspiring him to get back into action. Throughout this story, Peter keeps on having flashbacks and visions of the long deceased MJ, and it's only later in the story we find out the real reason. MJ died of cancer long ago. The worst part? The cancer was actually caused by Peter's radioactive blood. He infected MJ himself through fluid transmission. This is an awful memory that old Pete is stuck with and makes this one scary and a tragedy.
Number 4. The last Spider-Man film. The MCU Spider-Man films could be coming to a close. We almost didn't get a third film as negotiations between Sony and Disney froze up before finally being resolved. Oh, thank goodness. Considering how difficult it was for the two to come to some kind of agreement last time, it is possible that the next time Sony will be unwilling to loan Disney and Marvel the rights, and that Disney simply will refuse to pay Sony's high price, which they deem ridiculous. Many have therefore theorized that this could be the last Spider-Man film from the MCU that we'll be getting, and that Sony, rather than try to take over the Tom Holland Spider-Man stories, will either reboot and recast again or introduce an entirely new Spider-Man. They could even just make Venom the center of their live-action Spider-Verse, which would be a little weird, but I don't know if I'd hate it.
Number 3. Cosmic Cube. Another weapon classified as an Omega class weapon, the Cosmic Cube is an item that can control matter and energy, answering to the will of the sentient beings that use them. They require practice to be used properly, but a skillful user can alter all reality to answer to its thoughts, granting anything that they desire. In order to create a Cosmic Cube, the person must first generate a force field to open a rift to another dimension that's inhabited by the Beyonders, allowing the extra-dimensional energy to filter through the rift. When entering the Earth's dimension, the energies end up being held in some sort of matrix, and the force itself is what shapes the matrix into a perfect cube and provides the cube with its almost unlimited power. Like I kinda glossed over before, the Cosmic Cube's main power is answering to the will of a person, or, put simply, wish-making. The Cosmic Cube cannot affect souls, and given the Beyonders' inability to affect time, we can presume that the cubes cannot affect time, as the cubes possess only a fraction of the Beyonders' dimension's power. After extended use, a Cosmic Cube will develop its own intelligence, often influenced by the user at the time, and will get to a point where they choose how they want to be used and can deny certain wishes if they think they don't like them. There have been many wishes granted by the Cosmic Cube, the most notable being the ones made by Reed Richards, and of course Thanos, who used the power to become one with the universe. Check out the Cosmic Cube for yourself, starting with its first appearance all the way back in 1966's Tales of Suspense, number 79.
Number 2. Spider-Man will be forced to kill. Spider-Man doesn't kill often, but every now and then we've seen his alternates forced to do so, and even main continuity Spider-Man forced to do so. In the alternate universe of Amazing Spider-Man Renew Your Vows, he was forced to take out an enemy who he's recently actually been very friendly with, as a matter of fact, Venom. And this isn't the only time Spider-Man has killed, although he obviously often tries to avoid doing so when possible. With a few films on the horizon set in and around Spidey's world and villains, some of them being pretty great threats like Carnage, it is possible we could see one of these horrific scenarios come to the big screen, and we could even see Spider-Man turn to the darker side as a result, or become really depressed, which he's really good at doing in the comics. Number 1. Absolute Carnage. People have theorized that with the new Venom 2 film on its way, we won't just be seeing a throwback to the origins of Carnage as we know in the comics, but instead we'll be seeing the Maximum Carnage storyline where Cletus first starts wreaking havoc in the Marvel Universe, blended with a more recent and even more terrifying Carnage story, Donny Cates' Absolute Carnage, and with that story, potentially the introduction of Null as well. While the prospect of expanding and exploring Venom's cosmic heritage so deep, so early on seems far-fetched, the Absolute Carnage storyline was well received and well loved, so it is possible we could be shooting past Maximum and heading straight for Absolute when it comes to Carnage level in terms of where Venom 2's story will take us.